Richard Dent is almost 65, and the truth behind his so-called downfall might shock you. But here's what really happened. This isn't a story about failure. This is about one of the greatest defensive players in NFL history who risked everything to fight a battle that would change football forever. You know Richard Dent as the Hall of Fame defensive end who terrorized quarterbacks for 15 seasons. You remember him as the Super Bowl 20 MVP who helped lead the legendary 1985 Chicago Bears to their championship. But what you might not know is the incredible courage he showed long after his playing days ended. At 62 years old, Dent took on the most powerful sports league in America, not for money or fame, but to protect future generations of players from the same nightmare he lived through. In 2014, Richard Dent became the lead plaintiff in a class action lawsuit that would expose one of the NFL's darkest secrets. The lawsuit claimed that the league had created a dangerous culture where powerful painkillers were handed out like candy, often without proper prescriptions or medical supervision. This wasn't just about one player or one team. This was about a system that put profits over player safety. The allegations painted a horrifying picture of how pain medication was distributed throughout the NFL. Players described receiving pills in small manila envelopes with no directions or labeling. Dent himself recalled seeing painkillers sitting in a bowl on the table in locker rooms during his early career. He witnessed these dangerous drugs being distributed on planes, in locker rooms, and wherever teams traveled. Former players described a Wild West atmosphere where trainers handed out pills like Tic Tacs and players lined up for injections before games. The lawsuit specifically named drugs like Vicodin, Percodon, Percocet, Toradol, and Ambien as substances that were routinely given to players. The core argument was that the NFL had fostered a return-to-play culture that prioritized keeping players on the field over their long-term health and safety. This systematic pressure motivated players to take powerful medications to continue playing despite serious injuries. Dent's personal story became the heart of this legal battle. His 14-year NFL career left him with devastating health problems, including an enlarged heart, permanent nerve damage in his foot, and an addiction to painkillers. But instead of staying silent, Dent made a choice that would define his true legacy. He decided to speak out, driven by a powerful motivation. He didn't want to look at his young sons later in life and say he had a chance to do something about the problem and didn't take action. This decision wasn't easy. Dent was taking on a multi-billion-dollar organization with unlimited legal resources. He joined other former players like J.D. Hill, who said he became addicted to drugs during his NFL career and later became homeless. Quarterback Jim McMahon alleged he played with a broken neck and ankle and became addicted to painkillers, consuming more than 100 Percocet pills per month at one point. If you're inspired by stories of people fighting for what's right against impossible odds, make sure to subscribe to this channel and let me know in the comments what you think about Dent's courage to take on the NFL. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this one. The legal journey that followed was complex and challenging. The NFL's primary defense centered on arguing that the players' claims were blocked by collective bargaining agreements from their playing careers. The league said that any duties regarding medical care were defined by these labor contracts, so the case belonged in labor arbitration, not federal court. U.S. District Judge William Alsup initially agreed with the NFL and dismissed the lawsuit. But Dent and the other players didn't give up. They appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which twice reversed the lower court's dismissals. In 2018, the appellate court disagreed with the blocking argument, concluding that the players' claims were based on violations of state and federal drug laws, not on interpretation of labor contracts. A second appeal in 2020 partly reversed another dismissal, finding that the NFL could be held liable under a voluntary undertaking theory of negligence. This legal theory was crucial. The appellate court found that because the NFL had previously taken actions to improve player health, such as auditing team practices and funding studies on drug misuse, it had assumed a duty of care. The league's alleged failure to act on audit results could constitute negligence. This represented a potential legal breakthrough, shifting focus from whether the NFL had a pre-existing duty to whether its own actions created one. The plaintiff's attorney compared the NFL to a drug kingpin, arguing that while the league might not have physically handed out drugs, it controlled distribution and encouraged use through team doctors and trainers in ways that violated state and federal laws. The complaint alleged that the NFL directly and indirectly supplied and encouraged drug use, and that medical records were poorly kept or didn't exist at all. Dent noted that when he later filed for disability benefits, his medical file contained no record of the hundreds, if not thousands, of pills and injections he had received throughout his career. This missing documentation wasn't just evidence of poor record keeping, it illustrated the very difficulty of building a legal case against an organization that allegedly failed to maintain the records needed to prove wrongdoing. Despite these appellate victories, the lawsuit ultimately faced insurmountable procedural hurdles. The final dismissals were based on two critical legal arguments. First, both the lower court and the Ninth Circuit ruled that the players had waited too long to file their lawsuit, with some cases dating back 36 years. The court found that the plaintiffs were on notice of the NFL's conduct while they were still playing, even if they didn't know the full extent of harm until years later. The legal reasoning placed the burden of investigation on the players, many of whom were active athletes consumed by the very culture they later sued to change. Second, in August 2021, Judge Alsop denied the players' motion for class certification, calling it a showstopper. He concluded that a trial involving a nationwide class would be a sprawling train wreck, because it would require applying negligence laws from at least 23 different states. But here's where the real victory begins. Despite losing in court, Dent's lawsuit achieved something far more important than any financial settlement. The allegations were serious enough to trigger a federal investigation by the Drug Enforcement Administration. In November 2014, just 6 months after the lawsuit was filed, the DEA conducted surprise inspections of medical staff on several NFL teams. These inspections followed the lawsuit's allegations that teams had been illegally dispensing painkillers. This federal intervention provided powerful third-party validation of the players' claims and demonstrated that the allegations warranted official investigation. The lawsuit's dismissal didn't prevent it from forcing meaningful institutional change. The litigation, along with subsequent DEA scrutiny, served as a catalyst for the NFL and NFL Players Association to negotiate significant reforms in their collective bargaining agreement. These reforms represented a fundamental shift from the Wild West culture players described to a system of standardized, institutionally enforced oversight. The new policies established a joint pain management committee, comprised of medical experts appointed by the league and Players Association. This committee's mission is to establish uniform standards for pain management and medication use. The reforms included standardized player education protocols to ensure players receive FDA drug warnings and understand potential side effects and long-term risks of medications. A prescription drug monitoring program was created as an electronic database to track prescription data, including drug names, dosages, and issuing doctors. This data is used for education, research, and prevention of addiction and abuse, with clubs required to update the database monthly. Each club must now appoint a board-certified pain management specialist who is independent of the head team physician or orthopedist. The specialist's role is to provide expertise and ensure proper protocols are followed. The committee also conducts research into pain management, addiction, and alternative therapies, including marijuana and THC-based treatments, providing guidance to club medical staffs. The introduction of centralized monitoring and the mandate for independent specialists are direct acknowledgments by the league and players' union that the previous system was broken. Dent's lawsuit transformed a culture of unregulated pain management into a formal, structured system with defined responsibilities, data collection, and penalties for non-compliance. The comparison with other NFL litigation shows the unique impact of Dent's case. While the concussion lawsuit resulted in a $765 million settlement, it centered on a more unified injury that the league was accused of deliberately concealing. The painkiller claims involved a broader range of conditions that were harder to prove were singularly caused by league misconduct. The Evans case, filed a year after Dent's lawsuit, strategically named individual clubs as defendants instead of the league itself, attempting to avoid the no direct NFL involvement argument that damaged Dent's case. The successful $43.5 million verdict in the Margos medical malpractice case against a team physician demonstrates that courts are more receptive to direct claims against specific actors than broad systemic claims against distant corporate bodies. Richard Dent's legacy extends far beyond his Hall of Fame playing career. At almost 65, he can look back knowing that his courage to fight a powerful institution created lasting change that will protect future generations of athletes. While he didn't secure a legal victory or financial settlement, his personal sacrifice achieved something more valuable. The DEA investigations and comprehensive policy reforms stand as testament to his lawsuit's enduring impact. By compelling the league to adopt standardized oversight, monitor prescription data, and provide better player education, Dent fundamentally altered the landscape of player health and safety. His decision to take on this fight, driven by love for his sons and concern for future players, fulfilled his desire to create a lasting legacy of positive change. If this story of courage and lasting impact inspired you, please like this video and subscribe for more content about the people who fought to make sports safer for everyone. Richard Dent proved that sometimes the greatest victories happen outside the courtroom, in the lives that are protected by the changes brave people fight to create.